Alright, y'all, this one was a bit of a fiasco for me to make. It took me forever to get this list in the order that I was pretty happy with. Even now, obviously this is all subject to change at basically any given moment, but this is my top 30 records of this year, and I'm super glad to finally be getting this out of the way and taken care of, and giving all this stuff their proper spotlight. So in the background, we are listening to my favorite album of last year, which is Primordial Arcana by Wolves in the Throne Room. Absolutely stellar and amazing American black metal record. Everything about this was everything I wanted out of Wolves in the Throne Room, and didn't even know that they were going to add some extra stuff that I knew I'd love too. So we are also drinking this quite bright Belgium-inspired wheat ale by Bell's Brewing Company out of Michigan. It's already poured because this is my second take on this video. So, Nostrovia. Really tasty beer. I love Belgium ales. If you guys are beer drinkers as well, you guys know what a Belgian tastes like. It's one of a kind. The Belgium yeast really has a one of a kind flavor to it. So, let's get into it before I screw something else up. Number 30 here is going to be Seventh Rum of a Seventh Rum by Alestorm. This is their newest record from this year. Obviously, that's a dumb proclamation to make, but this is okay. It's not really what I wanted them to do, but it's the trajectory of which I expected. They've been getting goofier and goofier with every record, considering their early material was, you know, goofy. It's always been kind of hokey nonsense, which is what Alestorm's good at, and it's fun. It's what I love about him. The first handful of records and EPs were all like pirate themed metal, folk metal, power metal mixed together, with little bits of humor and goofiness on the side, just cause. But now they've kind of lessened the pirateness and used it as more of an aesthetic and an occasional callback in the lyrics, and made it more about like party band stuff. And I'm not huge on the cornball, you know, we're gonna bring a rubber duck that's 12 feet tall on stage kind of thing. It's kind of stupid, but it's a decent record. It's fun. It's just not gonna get played like I would the other couple of records, you know, like Sunset on the Golden Age and things like that. But nonetheless, it's a decent record. I'm glad I picked up the special edition and everything, and I really do love that album cover. Number 29 is one of my favorite bands, Astral Fortress by Darkthrone. I'm not a huge fan of this record. I like it. It's decent, but it is definitely not as interesting as Darkthrone is kind of known to be. It's got doominess to it. It's just, it feels like it doesn't go anywhere, you know? It kind of meanders a lot, and I don't know, I feel like this got pumped out really haphazardly and just kind of thrown together as, hey, we want a surprise record for everybody. Check this out. Let's get it going out and out of here, you know? So it's good, but it's really firmly placed at their number 29 spot, of which they have inhabited on this list. Next, number 28. This is a really good record by a really good band. It just got beat out due to me not listening to it quite as much as I did some of the other stuff on this list. This is Shattering Reflection by Evil Invaders. If you guys aren't familiar with Evil Invaders, they're a Belgium-based, at one point were a speed metal band, straight up speed metal, very much so in the vein of Razor and Exciter and Enforcer, things like that. Very old school 80s metal style. And this record maintains a bit of that speed metal tendency of which they're kind of known for, but it kind of incorporates quite a bit more traditional metal style to it, a lot more 80s rock styles to it, 80s kind of maybe AOR tendencies without so much losing all that heaviness. You know, it still sounds like a metal band playing some AOR inspired kind of traditional metal, maybe speedy tinged metal. It's good record, man. It's just not exactly what I was expecting out of them, and it's great. I'm glad I picked it up. Evil Invaders rules, and I would basically pick up their stuff anytime I see it anyway, because it's kind of hard to get a hold of sometimes. Next, we're going to be down to number 27 already here. We're at the Hierarchical Ecological Secession, Welcome to the Food Chain, by the almighty Troglodyte. This is one of my favorite black metal, death metal bands out of the United States. Out of Kansas City, Missouri specifically. This is a straight up death metal record in every sense. There's no frills, there's nothing extra. It's not tech, it's not doom, it's not thrashy. It's just straight up death metal in every sense of the word, which usually isn't my preferred style, and it still kind of really isn't my preferred style, but I think Troglodyte has a way of making it particularly interesting, you know? Like, I can't listen to 2 Christian albums in a row. That is just not something that's going to happen. It's great. But I just can't do that with a band like that. But this band, beyond the fact that I love their, Bigfoot and Sasquatch themed aesthetics, they do a really good job of making a genre that could become rather tiresome if not executed properly, keeping it particularly interesting, which is cool. Their first record, Welcome to Boggy Creek, is one of my favorite records of all time, as far as death metal goes. So I'll pretty much always wind up buying their stuff and just giving it a shot that way and supporting them one way or another. So that was number 27. We're at number 26 now, and we're going to be talking about Spirit of Ecstasy by Imperial Triumphant. Dude, this is out there. This band is incredibly talented, but I'm not that much of a prog head, so a lot of my complaints at the tail end here of the list tend to be more of not my preferred style, as opposed to I don't particularly think it's good. It's more of like this is a bit above my pay grade a lot of the time. Even though I have a music theory degree and stuff like that, and studied jazz and classical in college, it's not particularly something I listen to all the time. But nonetheless, it helps me create quite the appreciation for it. I mean, these guys have some incredible avant-garde songwriting chops. These guys are in a league of their own in basically every measurable way, and I think that's something that I really do appreciate about this group. It's got lots of cool features on it, which you guys have probably heard a million people talk about already, but this band is really fun. They don't really have much black metal going on anymore, maybe tinges here and there, but at this point I would call them an avant-garde extreme metal band, but they're still going to get filed in black metal for the sake of simplicity. Great band. Next, we are at number 25. This is a little more my speed. This is It's Time to Rise from the Grave by Undeath. I really dug the crap out of this record, man. It's super fun. It's riff-o-rama, and dude, these guys sure know their Cannibal Corpse albums. Here's the boys themselves right there. Killer stuff. It's really rooted in that the bleeding, vile era of Cannibal Corpse, you know. It's got the hammer-on riffs, it's got the chuggy stuff, it's got the down-tuning, it almost even has a similar vocal timbre to it. He sounds quite a bit like Chris Barnes. His vocal inflection is very much so in the vein of that style, that early Cannibal, that monstrosity sound. But particularly, I think this is rooted in more of the New York style death metal, which makes sense considering they're from Rochester, New York. But overall, I think it's an absolutely dynamite death metal album. It's all kinds of fun. It's a headbanger. It's heavy. It's good driving music. It's good for background music if you just want something heavy in the background. It's a great record. Undeath really nailed it this year with that one. Next one of the homies bands. This is For Holy Temple Defiled by Heliophobia. This is a Ohio-based band, the Cleveland area, and it basically plays a mixture between first wave black metal and first wave death metal. It has a lot of the early American sound of black metal to it, which obviously is death metal based. Your Grembilile's Keys, your Profanaticas, things like that. It has a lot of that soundscape, that style, the riff style, and a lot of the attitude to it. And I find it refreshing because I feel like not a lot of bands have really tackled that style in America, especially by young guys. I mean, I'm sure there's bands that you guys could rattle off to me off the top of your head that capture that style in 2022, but as far as I could think, this is one of the better. And it's great, man. I really did enjoy this Heliophobia record quite a bit, not even just because I know one of the guys in the band. Dude, this Wolves on the Throne record is so good. Next, we are at number 23. This is an Ecuadorian black metal band, Vampiric Rights, with The Wolves Howl to the Moon. It's one of those bands that was birthed out of the mid-2000 teens era of super raw Bandcamp style black metal. That is just really reminiscent early on of, you know, the Black Salices and your Candelabrums and things like that. But on this record, they've cleaned up quite a bit. It's still that style of raw black metal, riff-wise and melodically, but it's cleaned up a lot. You know, they've done that kind of Fimbulwinter, Satanic Warmaster thing where everything gets really clean sounding, but they keep the exact same style, just with a lot better production, a lot more accessibility to the sound itself, and I think that's respectable. I think this is a lot of fun. It doesn't really capture that vampiric sense anymore, though. That rawness that a lot of the bands of this ilk kind of tend to have. I think that this record in particular kind of lost a lot of that vampiric soundscape. But nonetheless, I think it's a really good record. Vampiric Rights is doing very well these days. Next, Kronos is here to rank as well while climbing onto my forum. Hello, buddy. We're at number 22. This is Morbidity Triumphant by Autopsy. I absolutely love this album. It's tons of fun. This band is one of the few bands, I think, from the classic era, you know, those classic age death metal bands, late 80s, early 90s beginnings. I think this is one of the few bands who's still putting out really good releases, who's still putting out albums that are really worth purchasing and listening to. I picked up a copy at the show that was all signed as well, which is very cool. But the album is fun, man. It sounds like these guys are just like, I'm not trying to progress, I'm not trying to get better, I'm just getting better at what I do. You know, they're not trying to change their musical sensibility. They're not trying to change anything about it. This band has that kind of AC/DC of death metal effect, like Cannibal Corpse kind of does, even though I think Cannibal's changed substantially more than Autopsy has. This is the first one to feature this new bassist, which sick mutton chops, dude. Check those things out. That is hectic. But yeah, this is a great, grimy, thrashy, old school death metal record. Chris Ryford and the boys killing it as usual. Great record. Number 21. This is a really good new wave of old school death metal band. This is Enveloping Absurdity by Phobophilic. This is a Fargo, North Dakota based death metal band. Lots of doomy tendencies. The songwriting in itself is pretty one of a kind. It's definitely inspired by the olden days, but certainly not a rip-off of the olden days. I have not yet shown this in an update, which you'll see with about 5 of these to be the case. But so I'm just going to show the covers. It's a great record, man. It's obtuse. It's really, what is the word? I wanted to say anthropomorphic, but I feel like it's a weird way to describe riffs. But I guess so. I'm just going to roll with it. But this band really puts out really obscure sounding riffs. They're just different. There's something about the riff style and the melodic choices that the songwriters themselves make that's just different. It has a lot of that Demolich and Time Ghoul style of wonky riff, but it's heavy as it gets, really. It's doomy and it's crazy. It captures that spirit into a doom-laden, genie lamp, I guess. This Phobophilic record really does it for me. I really enjoyed this a ton. Prosthetic picked these guys up and Undeath, and I think they're doing some really good work with it. This looks like a really good old school album. I think if this would have been tagged as a lost album from Finland in 1991, this would be the most sought after record there is. So Phobophilic really nailed it again this year. Next, where are we? Number 20, with Varg Timing by Erebaltor. Great Swedish band. These guys are a really well executed group. They're lots of fun. They are epic as it gets, man. epic Viking metal, you know, like the Bathory style, Hammerheart, Blood and Ice, Twilight of the Gods, things like that, mixed with some Doom leniencies, and I would say on this album and the last one or two, there's a lot of black metal influence. I wouldn't call it particularly black metal, but the Viking metal gets filed with the black metal in my collection. So it really captures the spirit of old when it comes to that kind of really, really good epic metal stuff. I really enjoy the crap out of it. And it's a good record, man. Erebautor is killing it. Next, number 19. A lot of hate for this album this year. I don't get it, other than the fact that they're very successful. But this is Black Braid 1 by Black Braid, obviously. This is a black metal band from New York, which is, what is the name of the town, which doesn't particularly matter, but it's Adirondack Mountains in New York, so that must be upstate, I presume. It's very, very good. It's really, really firmly planted in first wave black metal, but it has a lot of the Drukish and Winter Phylith, Woden's Throne style of atmospheric black metal, where it's not particularly bombastic as much as it is just really melodically dense and really atmospherically interesting. This band really knows what they're doing with that. There's tinges of folk here and there, but it's not the center point of it like it would be with something, you know, more like Crota. It's a really well executed, old school kind of atmospheric black metal album. And again, I don't get what the hate is for this band. Go listen to this if you have reservations about it because of the hype. It's pretty much worth the hype. It's not album of the year hype, but it's an album on the year list. Next, down to 18. Loothouse Nord with the album Disharmonium, Undreamable Abysses. The cover is underneath here. I haven't shown this quite yet on the channel, so I'm not going to open it. But this album is incredible. This album is cacophonous and suffocating in every sense of the word. This is absolutely devoid of proper melody. This is absolutely just like auditory strangulation, but in absolute pitch black darkness, and every single orifice of this album is devoid of joy, and that's something that I find incredibly wild. There's bands that stylistically kind of have this tendency. I mean, this band has done this, but I think it's more like the atmospheric equivalent to Portal. It's not tonally proper. It's definitely more atonal and disharmonious as it is compared to some of their other material, which I also love. I love most of Loothouse Nord's catalog. I tend to stay clear, very, very clear of the industrial tinge, and there's not a lick of it on here, which is even better in my book, because we don't need any of that, trust me. But this is a great record. You've probably heard this talked to death. A lot of people have had this a lot higher up on their year-end list. I think with some time and more revisitation, I would probably have put this even higher, but Loothouse Nord is firmly planted at 18 right now. 17, another Ohio band by, another Ohio-based band. Hang on, I grabbed the wrong one. Where are you? Oh, it's over there. I forgot the CD. Hang on, enjoy Chronos for a second. I grabbed the EP instead of the full length, so please forgive me for my incompetence, and I am not reworking the video for that. This is the proper Via Crucis record. Satanic Christ Decimation right here is a great, great black and death metal album. It is tons of fun. It's incantation to the bone mixed with Archgoat, Titan blood, things like that. It's gonna be a change, definitely, to come from what I understand, but this record in itself is something that I really, really thought was an awful lot of fun. It's heavy and it's really, really dense. And it's kind of cavernous to an extent, which I know might be a bit of a naughty word to some of you purist types, but whatever. The Crucis is absolutely great. Next is going to be number 16, which is Let There Be Witchery by Midnight. I did a review collaborating with Hammerheart Metal Reviews of this album earlier in this year, and it is absolutely loads and loads of fun. This is a super, super enjoyable, punky, speedy, blackened, thrashy album. It's kind of in between all of the genres all at once, and I find it incredibly interesting. Oh, hello, look who else came to join us. Miss Fauna has graced us with her presence. This Midnight record is really, really memorable. I think this might be the best thing that they've done since the first debut record. It's great, man. Athanar has such a good sensibility of what he needs to do with his songwriting and how it is that he should execute a style that has kind of been done to death. And I think that's one of the more important things in metal these days, considering we're really starting to get onto, you know, a little bit of repetition in a lot of styles. So I'm glad to see Metal Blade has not changed this band forcibly, which I kind of wouldn't expect. I mean, Metal Blade seems to do really good with their bands. So that was number 16. Number 15. I don't know how to pronounce this in Ukrainian, but All Belong to the Night by Druke. I love this band. They've produced one of my favorite black metal albums of all time, being Blood in Our Wells. And this album is different. It's a lot different, actually. They had a couple releases since they've came back to black metal. I think beyond this, the most recent one I own is a Furrow Cut Short. But this album is really melancholic and retrospective, I would say. It seems emotional. It seems like a lot more of a true blue emotional roller coaster as opposed to an atmospheric journey. This band really knows what's up when it comes to their more melancholic, candlelit, bitter darkness, as opposed to the prettiness and like the somber, crushing defeatism of their earlier catalog. But this record is absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend this to any fans of Druke or black metal in general, if you guys haven't listened to this one for whatever reason. Number 14 is going to be Summoning the Slayer by Temple of Void. This is great. I really liked this album a lot. So I met the guys from Acid Witch earlier this year, and I didn't know Mike was in this band. So I felt like a real jerk ignoring that and not mentioning the fact that I love Temple of Void as much as I do. This is quite the difference. I feel like these bands were one of the spearheads of the new wave of old school death metal originally, but they've changed so much compared to where they started. I mean, they sounded like maybe like a Finnish death metal band at first, and they kind of have that idea still, but they've changed so much in the songwriting department. They've gotten a lot more bombastic and theatrical. They've gotten to be a lot more doom-laden, and they've introduced maybe some peace-filled stylings to them. More, I would even say, on the funeral doom side of things. And it's a really, really good transition in their catalog. Temple of Void is at number 14. Number 13. This is Dimension of Deviant Clusters by Universally Estranged. Look at that cover. Look at that cover, y'all. Super, super awesome. This band is really, really killing it with their past two records. I didn't pick up their last one last year. I picked it up this year, but I wish I would have, because it would have definitely placed. This album is super, super fun. The keyboard space themes are really, really well executed. They're up there with the Nocturnus and the Crystal Age of, the modern or the old school, and this is kind of carrying that torch. A lot of people are trying to make a resurgent sound. This band is, resurrecting that. They're in that ilk permanently, I hope. It's out on Blood Harvest as well, and it's great. This band has gotten better as time goes on, and I think that this is something that you could really, really sink your teeth into and listen to over and over, and just, it's one of those records you can kind of find a million new things in every time that you listen to, even though it's relatively simplistic with a lot of layers added over the top. It's a really good record. You guys hearing this right now? This is my favorite track on this album. The Underworld Aurora. This is just a journey. Next, number 12. This is Origins by Sayor. Another one I haven't talked about on the channel quite yet. Fauna, what are you licking yourself on the shoulder for? Right in my lap. Origins is a really, really good change of style, I would actually say. They still have a big, strong foot in the atmospheric black metal style, but have really embraced a more epic metal, heavy metal, traditional metal tinge. You know, this is the most riff-based album, I would say, that they've ever really done, as opposed to the Aura and some of the other highlights in their catalog. This is great. The song Aurora on here is probably my favorite, that or of track 2, which is Fallen. Both of them have quite the Celtic melodic sensibility. It's very noticeably Scottish, very noticeably of Celtic origin, and I think that's really cool. If you're going to make it folk black metal, it should sound properly, what is the word, geographically proper, I guess. You know, a lot of bands would be like, oh yes, I'm some dweeby guy from Wisconsin, I'm going to make Norse folk. No, dude, make your lumberjack style banjo music into your black metal. That's what I'd want to hear of some Wisconsin boys. But Sayor really, really captures that Scottish pride in their music, I would say. Really, really good record. Next, number 11. We're almost on the top 10. Rot Among Us by Acid Witch. This record rules. Absolutely rules. This is one of my favorite bands, I would say, of all time. It's hokey, it's corny, and it's nothing but fun. This record in itself, I don't think hit me in the same type of way as Evil Sound Screamers, but that's hard to do. That's one of my favorite modern death metal albums, which this band calling death metal at this point is a bit of a stretch. I would say they've really embraced more of their folk, more of their stoner and doom sound. But this album kind of continues that Evil Sound Screamers style, but brings it a little bit back, more closer to in between that and stoned, still leaning more towards the Sound Screamer style. This would have been a really good transition between those two. There's some really great tracks on here, like Psychodethic Swampnosis, The Evil Dad, which is nuts, Chelsea Didn't Come Home Last Night, The Sleeper. It's great. The witch vocal that Slasher Dave really executes really well, shines really, really through on the narrations, the spoken parts, and all over this record. He really nails it. Acid Witch is great. All right, y'all. The final 10. We are going to talk about number 10, Winter Burial with White Tomb Pilgrimage. This is something I haven't heard many folks talk about this year, but it's amazing. The CD was put out by Torment Rex, and it's number 15 out of 66 copies. It's brilliant. So this band has one of the coolest logos there is. I absolutely love it. But this band is very, very anonymous. Don't know where they're from, don't know who's a part of it. Easily one of the more obscure bands, I would say, that I have on this list. So this band is that older style, I hate to call 2000s older, but like the 2000s style of atmospheric black metal that's super, super raw. You know, your Passage de Hiver style for the most part. Torment Rex really has a lot of that on their roster, you know, being this and what is the other one? I have another one right behind me right now that I don't care enough to turn around to. I've wasted enough of your time with having to get another CD already. But this album is reminiscent of Passage de Hiver and Moonblood, and it's got those melodic atmospheric riffs played with a really raw style and I think it's amazing. I would say go check out tracks like Lamentations of the Frozen Moon or Under Black Wings Unkind, As I'm Buried in a White Tomb. It's great. Check this out if you haven't. Next is going to be the number 9, which is Enius. I don't know how to properly pronounce it. Consecration. Absolutely amazing. Everybody knows Liam here on YouTube at this point. They just really hit it out of the park on this one. They put this out on Redefining Darkness this year, and it is Death Doom masterwork. Absolutely all over the place on the spectrum of Death Doom, but they are just great. It is absolutely crushingly heavy. The guitar tone's huge. I don't know what tuning you guys playing. It sounds like C or C sharp standard, I would guess. And I really enjoy this compared to a lot of the other death metal records this year. In fact, this is probably number 3 on my death metal list in particular here. And this one in particular tends to lean a lot in that old school Death Doom, but really incorporates an absolute load of the Peaceville style, the more atmospheric, somber, doom-laden parts of Death Doom. More of the Doom verses and your Catatonia, your Paradise Lost, your Anathema, things like that. And that really makes this one work for me. And I think it's really well put together. You guys nailed it, Liam. I appreciate you guys greatly. Number 8. This is Nosferatu Darkness, The Loveless Nights in Tavastia by Vampiric Blood. I haven't heard too many people talk about this one, only a handful of people, and I don't know what the deal is with it. I did a full review of this one a couple of months ago, and it is a great new black metal album. This band is more known for that raw style of Dom Dracul and what's the other one? I'm blanking. Howling and Candlelight. So, trying to follow up Howling and Candlelight is pretty tough because it's such a well put together record. They changed quite a bit of style for that. They've got better production on this record, and the riffs are a lot more of a heavy metal attack as opposed to a straight up raw black metal recording. It's got some heavy metal attitude with the black metal riffage, and I think it's really well done. Vampiric Blood is at number 8. Number 7, Within the Magic of Windfire Steel by Power Paladin. The only Icelandic album on this list. And do I have to tell you anything? Can you just look at that and tell me exactly what it sounds like? Because you'd probably be right. Not symphonic, though. This is a super well done European style power metal record. It's got everything bombastic about Euro power metal, and it's got some of the American attack to it, but the aesthetics are super great, as you can tell. The opening song, Craven the Hunter, super catchy. That's something that's kind of a tendency across this entire album. That song, Dark Crystal, Way of Kings, Into the Forbidden Forest, Creatures of the Night. It's just amazing. This band, anthemic, chorus-based power metal. Great band. Power Paladin rules. Next, number 6, Relics of the Dead by Druidlord. I knew that this was going to be super high, and for a long while this would have been my favorite death metal album of the year, but it's at number 2. So this is a great record. It's very pronounced. Everything about this album is audible. It's not incredibly raw, but it's super heavy. Everything about it is well composed. The songwriting is interesting. It's relatively melodic, but it's densely atmospheric. This is some cavern dwelling in death metal, absolutely. Catacombs specifically, I would say, looking at that album cover, fits very well with, walking through, caves in Skyrim, especially if you're in like the dragon priest lairs and stuff like that. That's kind of what this makes me think of. I love the vocals, and the vocalist makes an emphasis, he emphasizes his proper pronunciation of words, so you can actually keep along with the story almost without the lyrics. It's that well pronounced, and I think that's a really, really cool thing to be doing on a death metal record. So Druidlord, number 6. We're on our top 5 here, y'all. This is going to be good. An album that did not get a lot of love this year, but this is Key to a Vanishing Future by Falls of Ferraros. This band has changed a lot over the years. I would say they have like eras of like their early old school black metal style, then Believe in No Coming Shore and The Light That Dwells in Rotten Wood, and maybe Vigilance Perennial, and then these past two being, this one is the newer of the two, obviously. This is great. They've gotten really, really, really progressive as far as black metal goes. This is kind of like what I think people would want Enslaved to sound like these days, being a progressive black metal band with tons of atmosphere. It's really, really dense, and it's really, really well put together. The songwriting's interesting. You're kind of always guessing where it's going to be going next, and that's something I think can get lost in a progressive style. It could sound like it starts to meander quite a bit. It sounds like they're losing the train of thought in a lot of progressive bands. But this band, they have quite a bit of songwriting clarity. Everything makes sense. Everything is well put together. It's well driven. Everything about this record rules. Falls of Ferraros, number 5. Number 4. This was firmly placed at number 3 for a while. But this is Engrossed in Decay by Molder. Dude, gotta love it. Gotta love it. Everything about this is what's so good about death metal. It's heavy, it's catchy, and it is thrashy. It's got some doom-ish laden parts. It's very, very old school, late 80s style of death metal. This sounds like your classic Pestilence, your early Autopsy, your early Asphyx, your early Autopsy, things like that. Maybe some Merciless from Sweden here and there, just for good measure. Your first 2 death records. It's got all of that mixed together into this absolutely perfect cauldron brew of nasty, sewage-sounding death metal. It really is Engrossed in Decay. I would say that for sure. This is one of my favorite bands I've seen live recently as well. They throw down. They keep it going really, really well. If you guys can get a whole crowd moving the way this band does, you know your tunes rule. Mold it. Number 3, Vehements, with the new album Ordalis, or Dalius, I don't know. This is number 3. This band is a ton of fun. I'm new to them. I've heard the praise be sang of them for, I don't know, a couple of years now, since their first debut record came out. But this particular record, I think, has really, really improved on the sound. It's really medieval sounding. It's kind of folky, but it's really epic. It's really interesting. It's melodic. I kind of like the clean vocals. I have mixed emotions about the clean vocals, which is what I think keeps it from being higher up. I love clean vocals, absolutely. But this in particular style of clean vocals, okay. It's not the coolest style of clean vocal I could possibly think of. That would be my one gripe, which is kind of nitpicky, because it's supposed to sound like an epic chorus, like knights sitting around a table yelling lyrics at each other. I think that's really, really cool. So don't confuse me making a nitpick with me complaining about the album by any means, because this album is absolutely amazing. The Vehements is absolutely stellar. This next record, number 2, almost took the number 1 spot, but I just couldn't do it. This is Kanawa Black by Nichotwin. I have the LP over there, but I didn't want to bust it out and just have one record to show in here. This is great. I was just floored. Every time I listen to this, I loved it even more. Every single time I'm just gobbling up this great atmospheric folky black metal. It's so musical. These guys have such a great songwriting style. It's really one of a kind, man. It fits perfect on the Bindrune roster, because it sounds like the other Bindrune bands, but it's not similar enough as to where it's forgettable. It sounds like Bindrune, and this is kind of another band that I think has a lot of that Enslaved style to it. It's got a lot of funeral doomy tinges to it. It's got lots and lots of parts to really sink your teeth into, to really, really enjoy every single second of this thing. The funeral doom parts, I think, are a really cool addition to the band. The clean vocals are great, and again, another band that kind of sounds like the proggy Enslaved to me. And there's Opethisms all over this record. If you guys hear that in there, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And number one, my number one album of 2022, Tales of Hogsmeade Village by Slytherin. This band took the number one spot months ago, and Nichotwin almost took it from them. They really did almost take it from them, but it just couldn't be done, apparently. This is the epic style of black metal with some summoning influence, obviously, but it's a lot more based in the atmospheric style of black metal. And you know me, that's my stuff, man. I got this Forlorn Citadel t-shirt on. You guys hearing what I'm listening to in the background. You mix those two styles together, you're really hitting me in the feels. And this band just really mixes it perfectly. It's more atmospheric black metal than it is epic summoning style, but it's sprinkled over the top in a really tasteful way, and it's really memorable. The song, what is it? I think it's Double Trouble. It's a John Williams cover. And it's House of Ravenclaw that does that. But Double Trouble is a John Williams cover. House of Ravenclaw is my favorite track off of here. If you're going to check out one track off of this record, make it be that. And I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I got a pile to put away on the rack here. So I hope you guys enjoy your New Year's. Have a good, safe, happy one. And I'll see you guys next week. Keep it greasy.